stuff down as we go. And then...
Make sure it works. Because if we do all
yeah, I know, right?
I'm going to be like...
I know, it works. Hello and welcome to The Art of Growth. I'm Jim Zartman.
And I'm Abby Zartman.
And we have talked on this show before. We've mentioned several times that we offer couples coaching, but you've never actually heard from us as a couple. So we wanted to do something, and I wanted to share tips. There was things that I wanted to come in and offer advice in this first podcast. And Abby's like, no, I think we should actually start with our story.
Absolutely.
And I am always really uncomfortable sharing my story. For some reason, I haven't figured out yet. Maybe there's something I haven't delved into yet there. But there is something about that. Because I think my thinking is our story and our relationship seems so normal.
You think?
I don't know. Normal, boring, but it is ours.
And your story is the most important thing that you can offer.
Yes. So in 2004, I walked in to play a gig and I saw a girl sitting there and I thought, I'm going to ask her out. And so she came in with a mutual friend. I got her phone number from said friend and I called and I asked her out. And that is my recollection of the first time meeting you.
Which is inaccurate.
Inaccurate. According to you, it's inaccurate. Yes.
Yes.
So what really happened then?
So what really happened is I had just gotten out of college and I went over to our mutual friend's house. I saw this guy. He had long hair. It was tied back with a ponytail. He had this black long trench coat on.
I looked like Silent Bob at the time.
These crazy rolled up pants and Vans shoes. And he was just pounding away on this old piano. And he was just really into it. And he was just had these big fiery eyes. And I was like, who is this? And, I had gone to a Christian college. And I was surrounded by a lot of nice, very polite, good-mannered boys. And this guy wasn't impolite, but he definitely had a different energy than I was used to.
Yeah.
So I thought he was there for the party. So I was like, oh, I'll get to know this interesting character. But before we even started our games that evening, he said that he was leaving and he went off to do some gig somewhere. So I later found out that he just randomly invites himself over to people's houses and and just shows up and then leaves just whenever he, is ready to leave. So we didn't really have any conversation or interaction that night, but that was my first meeting with Jim Zartman. And I think it was probably do we agree that it was 2 years later that we were at the cafe?
I don't know, since I don't remember this event at all. And I almost believe that it happened. It sounds vaguely familiar. I mean, that's exactly what I looked like during that era. And that sounds very much like what I would do. But we didn't introduce. We didn't say hi, my name is.
Yeah, there was no introduction.
Right. It was just kind of
That's
okay.
True. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people around. So, I mean, to give a little context, a lot of data is out there as far as what the stages of a relationship are, how they begin, kind of the phases that they go through. We're going to actually look at it in a little different framework as we go through it. So we're going to look at the stages that lead to a relationship and then the cycle that happens when you are in a relationship. That might be two different episodes, but sort of all agree that this first stage is this sort of attraction, infatuation stage. That's the beginning of a relationship, which you feel this drawing towards this person, which, obviously you felt towards me, seeing me playing the piano the first time. You felt this drawing towards me.
There was obvious curiosity involved there.
Curiosity, yeah. You don't want to go as far as to say attraction, because I definitely had a look, one might say, that was reminiscent of the 90s.
But when we really truthfully met,
Yeah.
I mean, so we did have mutual friends, I do remember walking in to the cafe. You had just finished playing a gig, and you were telling some really corny jokes. But
nonsense. They were brilliant.
In hindsight, like, my dad is really sweet and kind of corny. And so whether I admit it or not, I think there was a very familiar feel I felt. Even though I thought it might have been corny, I thought it was sweet.
One thing we talk about is there is a lot of people that talk about this first thing, this attraction, but not a lot of people talk about like the setting of the attraction, like what is going on in your life that led you to the point, what influences, what community, who is around you, that were sort of influencing the moment at which you met said person. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about that?
It was the right time for both of us. So anyway, I go away to school. I'm around, they have this saying, a ring by spring or your money back or something like that, Yeah. Like a lot of people went to this school to, get their, I think they say a doctorate in Mrs.
The MRS
degree.
Yes, the MRS degree. Oh, man.
And so.
It's both bad and corny. But no, it did work for a lot of people. It worked for a lot of people there, yeah.
It did. And I think my parents were secretly hoping that I would meet someone.
Oh, that's funny.
Just because I had gone on lots of dates, but I had never dated anyone. Like, I had never had a boyfriend. It was a very safe environment where I could have, and, I definitely had guy interests there. But I was very focused on what I wanted to learn and grow as a person. And I just thought that this male figure would distract me from my mission. And so I just always thought, I want to meet someone more local. That was just a feeling that I had. So I really
local
wasn't.
As in like when you went back home?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
your
we're
school
from
was
Ohio.
Right.
And my school is in New York. So I finished school, and I really had, one night I was sitting down on my couch, and I was like, you know what? I really need to settle something in my mind, because I have 3 brothers, and they had always said, Abby, you're just too picky. Like, no one's ever going to get through your wall. You're just going to end up like single. And I have a great relationship with my brothers, and, I'd kind of laugh, and I kind of took what they said, but, I just had my mission and my priorities and whatever. But I was like, as time went on, I was like, maybe I felt like I really needed to settle something in my heart. So I kind of had this, like, no one bother me. I don't want to be bothered by you. I just, I didn't want to deal with the men that were around me. I always had my radars up, but I just wasn't really interested. And so I think part of it was a wall that I put up. And I think I just was coming to the feeling that I needed to wrestle with where I was at, or be honest with myself and figure out what I was really feeling. So I remember sitting down with my journal, and I was like, do I want to go through life with a partner or by myself? Like, what would bring out my best self? And as I sat there, I was like, you know what? I think that my best self, I could see myself with another partner. And so I was really honest and just wrote down that, yes, I do want to live and go through life with someone else. And I think just that small act of being really real and honest with myself opened up my heart in a way that made me receptive to you and to whoever that next person,
There is that. We actually had that in common, where I had actually dated a lot of different people, but I'm not sure I actually ever opened my heart. I don't know. I kind of feel like I was selfish. Like, the relationships were on my terms. Like, I wanted them to look a certain way. So it didn't really include the other person's thoughts, feelings, experiences to the extent that a real, open, honest relationship should. I think a lot of people do relationships this way. It's just like, I want you for what you offer. But I think that actually put up a wall between a lot of the potential relationships. And so I don't think I honestly ever let someone in. And I remember, shortly before we met, like, deciding, all right, I need to actually be able to let someone in. I need to actually, like, put my heart on the line. And I didn't even practically know how to do that, but knowledge is powerful. Like there is something to admitting something to yourself. And I was just admitting to myself, like, this is something I need to do. I had a sort of long-term unrequited interest that like really closed the door, and something about that like opened me up to be like, okay, I need to be actually open when I date someone or I show interest in something. And when I met you, like I didn't know what it was, but it was like, absolutely, I have to ask her out. And I mean, you appreciated that I was like very direct, but I wasn't always that direct in like previous like attempting to date people. Like, but with you, it was just like, I need to be straight ahead. I am done with games in my life. I'm going to be 100% honest, and I'm going to say exactly what I think, and I want to say exactly what I want. And so, yeah, when I called you up, I was just like, this is what I want. I want to ask you out.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciate that you were very direct. I knew what your intentions were. I think I had been really turned off, with kind of the high school drama of, oh, well, a friend sends a friend over to ask if you like said friend, and it just seemed very immature. And I just really appreciated just your directness, and it left no mystery, and I found that really refreshing.
Yeah, because I didn't want you guessing. I didn't want you guessing at what my intentions were. I didn't want you guessing at what I was thinking. And I love telling the story. Even though we see it differently, I like my version of the story. So I think my version of the story is the best because it's the funniest, even though I think it's the most accurate too, which is like 3 weeks into dating you. Well, I think it's funny because we go out the very first time, and I have such a great time. I'm like, I actually want to go out with her again. And so I called you up the next day, and I was like, we have this thing tomorrow. Do you want to come? And your response was like, I already saw you this week. It's kind of like, hey, don't move in too quick. That was the message. Kind of like, don't, like, I'm inviting you in, but don't like try and push in too much too quickly. And so it was like, okay, well, so we went out the following week, and then the week after that, and after about 3 weeks, I remember us talking on the phone, and I'm sitting over at a friend's house on their stairs, and you're like, this is great because I've been wanting more guy friends, and my reaction was, yeah, we are not friends because that is not my intentions. Like, I have a lot of wonderful women friends in my life, but that's like not my intentions with you. And it was that whole thing of like, I don't want to play games. I don't want to say one thing and mean another. Like, I want to be very clear, like, this is my intentions. My intentions are to date you. Because I was already like smitten. I was like very interested. I wanted to like lean in and go, what is it with this person? Is undefinable. And more, like the research is showing that there's like some kind of a chemical thing when people are drawn to each other, that there's just some kind of visceral thing where you go, I need to like move towards this person. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew that piece.
Mm-hmm. And we had, gone on a walk and had a nice conversation. And when we had this second conversation, I remember I was in the basement stairs, and you had dropped the bomb that you didn't want to be my friend. And in my mind, there was nothing after that statement. So I hear, you don't want to be my friend, click, is what I'm like, I have no idea how to respond to this. So I was definitely speechless. But yeah, then I think you did call me back, and we processed it a little bit, but...
That's the emotional it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like already you can hear before we get into Enneagram stuff, because we had no awareness of this at the time. But like, we come from very different perspectives. We experience things really differently. Like her having to get alone, to journal, to write about her thoughts and see how she was feeling about things, versus me, who's just like, I'm going to take action and move in. And some of you are already knowing what we are, or you've heard us on the other panels, like from season 1 and 2. But this attraction stage is something that I think we all do automatically. We just know that we're drawn to someone, but there is really something that needs to be done at this stage that not enough people do, which is to actually evaluate what I'm attracted to. Mm-hmm. Because at a lot of different points in my life, I definitely was attracted to as our friend Nancy calls it, like the perfect negative attraction. Like I wasn't in a good, healthy, emotionally stable place in my life. So I was drawn to people that basically gave me permission to be not my best self. So what do you think as far as how to think through the setting you're in when you're finding yourself attracted to someone?
I mean, the first thought, just from my own experience, the experience I had with you is, as I'm on our first date even, I just remember being very aware of feeling safe with you. And so there was something very familiar and just very safe that I felt like I could be myself. And so that, I think, was really important to me.
Yeah, I think that feeling of safety is a really good one. And it was a good thing that you had in you. Like, I want to feel safe to even be aware of that. Like, that is something you think of. And some people don't think enough about, like, am I safe with this person's character? Because that was something that you talked about. You're like, I may not have known you, but we did know enough of the same people that they kind of vouch for your character.
Mm-hmm. That was really nice to have some mutual friends, because I only saw you from a distance. And so I had just a general feeling that you were a good, safe guy, even though I didn't really know you. But yeah, that definitely helped me feel more at ease and peaceful.
And that's actually something that I always recommend to people when they're looking into a relationship or they're trying to evaluate whether to go into a relationship with someone, which is to look at that person's community. Like, look at the friendships around that person. Look at who that person is close to. Do they have a stable community? Do they have people that they've been friends with for a long time? Because if you meet someone and you're like, that you suddenly become their whole world.
Yeah.
I've never seen that go very well.
Yeah. Knowing that we weren't just going to become this so intense couple separate from everyone else, it was really comforting to me to get to see you in different lights. So in our dating stage, I was very intentional about seeing you in different seasons and around different people. And so I wanted to see you, how you interacted with your family and how you treated your mom and your sister. And it was really reassuring to know that you had lived on your own. So I knew that, like, I wasn't going to be the person that was just, like, doing your laundry and cooking. And, like, he survived on his own. That was really important to me. Then you also lived with...
for context, a lot of people, like, we are in our early 20s when we meet. So it's not like we're, like, later in life where a lot of people get married now. You're 23 when we meet.
Yes.
You had just turned 23. I'm 24. So we were pretty young. And so, yes, like, we were in this life skill development era, like, time of life.
Yes, that's important to mention. It was just really helpful to get to see you around different people. I definitely brought you around my family. How would you interact with my siblings? And
and what did your dad say after the first time he met me?
That really was the first time he had met you.
That was the first time he'd met me.
Yeah. My dad was like, yeah, he'd make a great son-in-law. I was like, Dad?
And at the time, I'm like, you're not helping my case. You didn't actually tell me that for, like, months later.
Really?
Yeah, because I think that probably actually made you more cautious there for a while.
Yeah, I was definitely a cautious person. Very, I definitely leaned into my one of being organized, and I want to see this person in all the different lights. And I had ideas of what I thought humility looked like, and I had ideas of what a good, in my mind, godly person looked like. And I mean, that was some things that we definitely had to work through in our relationship. My idea of what I thought was basically a version of myself. Like, I was looking for, without me realizing it, I was looking for someone who kind of looked like me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do that. Like that's the natural tendency. Is the psychologists like show that we don't look for what's best for us; we look for the familiar. So there's a reason why a lot of times people who have a certain kind of really hard family life are actually attracted to people who would create the same scenario for them. And it actually takes a lot of work to break out of that. So we are both attracted to what is familiar, as in what looks like where we come from, and that is familiar is like what is in us, that is attracted to us. And I always think of that line from The Perks of Being a Wallflower, where this girl is just dating this series of like not great guys, and kind of realizes and sums it up in the statement where she says, "We accept the love we think we deserve." And something about that is always like stuck out to me as far as being so true of people's dating lives, that sometimes we don't think very highly of ourselves, or we come from a lot of instability and we are drawn towards that. We're actually attracted to the instability and looking for the familiar. And I think it's really good to have a system in place, a sort of like a network of relationships in place, because this is the one thing I noticed and it was really helpful to me is a lot of my relationships ended. And one of the factors was that I had a really good community around me, and they were like, "I don't think this person's good for you. Like, I don't think this is good for you." And until I met you, and then literally every one of my friends, my family, every single person was just like, "Yes, whatever it is that you two have," it was a yes. And it was my first yes in my life. I felt like, and I got so tired of the no. I was just like, none of you know what you're talking about. I'm just going to do what I want. But it was very reassuring to me when we met, that as we're going through this second stage, you call it evaluation, that we got a lot of that affirmation from our community. And so we've sort of moved phases here from the attraction, the initial, to the evaluation, when you're talking about wanting to see me in all these different seasons of my life. I don't know that I did as much evaluation as you did. So, because I was so like just a gut, like this seems right and people are encouraging. But yeah, that was definitely something that you were stronger in.
Yeah. Well, just going back to thinking that I wanted someone like me, or thinking that I wanted somebody basically myself, I realized that I don't need another me, like there's enough of me. I think that really helped me open up to letting both in, the challenge of having someone be so different, because we are opposites. And, Jim and I were talking the other day about, I'm the kind of person that I would love, like in a barn scenario, I would have a beautiful, clean barn, like no animals.
Oh, if you were like living in a...
If I was like living in a barn.
If you created your own life.
If I created my own life without you, singleness, I would have a very calm, beautiful house, but there would be no adventure, no life, no animals. And so it was a journey for me, early on, realizing, just kind of opening myself up that there is this instability that you're inviting into your life. And it was scary for me. And it definitely took the right person to venture out into the real world, where life could be crazy, but double the joy, double the adventure, double the journey.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of those adventures at another point, because we've been through quite a few of them. But let's look at this evaluation stage just a little bit longer, because I think there is a lot of questions that are really good to ask during this stage. But one thing that we've noticed with couples is, depending on their personality, depending on their bent, depending on their Enneagram type, some people lean way into the evaluation stage, where they really want to make sure that the relationship's right. They really want to make sure that they check all the boxes, and they're looking at this person and soberly, and they really want to make sure we tick all the boxes, but having a harder time just enjoying the process. A lot of times people kind of get swept away because, as Laura mentioned on one of our former podcasts, that they've shown the brains of people and they're falling in love and it looks identical to someone on cocaine. Because dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin, all these like hormones in your body are like spiked through the roof and you're not thinking very clearly. And so I think a lot of people like get carried away with that thing and then they just run with it because it feels really good. And other people like don't trust it and then they overly evaluate it, kind of depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah. And I definitely lean towards the over-evaluation. Yeah, if I were to go back and do it again, I would have allowed myself way more joy and enjoyment.
I thought you said you do it the same way.
No, so I do. I would do it exactly the same way with more joy. Like, okay. I'm not going to like lose my, yes, I still want to see you in different lights and in different situations and around different people. Like, obviously, I would do that exactly the same. Right. But I think the anxiety of knowing if you were a person that would be in my life for a long time, I let that drive me rather than the gratitude and the joy of being in the moment. And that did come a little bit later, but there was a little bit of that anxiety that I think I would have loved to have let go of. And that's something that I continue to have to work on in my life, is letting that joy and that gratitude drive me more than turning everything into a work thing.
So there's another thing as far as this evaluation phase in relationships, which is I think, evaluation of self. Like, stop and pause and be like, did you have good relationships modeled for you? Did this person have good relationships modeled for them? Because if not, like, there's just going to be a certain amount of work that needs to be done. If you come from a super stable, like all of your relationships were super healthy, it gives an unfair advantage to the relationship. And in a lot of ways, we did have a lot of healthy relationships modeled to us. Like, that was very helpful. We had good mentors. We had, incredible premarital counselors and friends who had gone before us, who had learned a lot that we did glean a lot of wisdom from. So we sort of started in an advantage at that point. But if you're starting a relationship, you're in a relationship, or even you've been married for a while and you didn't really have that kind of a background, or it looked so different from who you are, that's going to be hard. Like, there's definitely going to be some work to be done before you get to fully experience some of the joy that relationship has the potential to bring. So since we got married before, a lot of your friends, or a lot of our friends, a lot of them did ask you questions as far as what you would recommend considering or processing through, or how to think through things like going into dating relationships. And like, so what are some of those pieces that you would share with them?
I think some really good questions to ask when you're considering someone is, does this person respect your personal boundaries and value the concerns that you have? Do they listen to you, or do they just kind of dismiss it? And, how comfortable are you talking about these issues? Like, do you feel safe bringing stuff up? I think that's really important. Well, it's really important for me. Just thinking about how the two of you like handle conflict, and how often like are you compromising your truth to be with this person is a really big one. Like, how much are you always compromising? Is there give and take?
That's a really good one, because that one right there, it's so funny how many couples we now know where we met them right when they first started dating that are now married. And how many of them I was just like, oh yeah, that one, they're going to totally get married. And there was something about that, what you just said, that they didn't compromise themselves in that other person's presence. Because a lot of times, like, we've known one person for a really long time, and then a partner suddenly comes in, a dating partner, and you're like, oh, good, it's still the same person I've always known. And my skin would crawl a little bit. I get a little uncomfortable when I was like, oh my goodness, they're altering themselves in this other person's presence. Like, that's not going to lead to good things.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Sorry. Next one.
Yeah. I think another one that I kind of said that I did was how the other treats family members. Family is a really tough subject. And even though you might not agree with a family member or they could be really unhealthy, how that person interacts and treats a family member, I think is pretty big green flag or red flag, depending, Like it was really important to me to know that I really trusted that you would make good decisions towards your family and have good interactions.
That's an ever-evolving thing that we're still trying to improve at. I think of like what Ram Dass says. He goes, if you think you're enlightened, go home for the holidays. Like the like the family is kind of the final frontier. Like there's a lot of things you can learn and practice in your own self-development, self-awareness, spirituality, but bringing those things to home where you have so much muscle memory and emotional triggers and things is definitely part of the growth process that's super important but really hard. And so when you're evaluating something, like, are they actually, not do they get it all right, but like, are they trying to move forward? Do they have a value to improve their closest relationships? Because there is a sign in that, which is, what is this person going to interact with me 10 years into marriage?
Yeah. Yeah. Something that was also really important to me was how reliable is this person? When they say that they're going to do something, do they actually follow through and do it? I think the evaluation period is so important, and it is something to not gloss over. I think there is this tendency to want to feel connected and intimate with this person before doing some work. And I think that if you're able to just take a step back and really figure out what's important to you, what do you really value, and then to see the other person, I think it will really serve well in the long run. It gives you more of an idea of what are the game changers.
What do we actually need to delve into? Is there something popping up that we need to work on? And we're not going to ignore it. We're actually going to process through. And this is practice.
Absolutely.
This is practice for long-term relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I would write down like this list of things like concerns or like things I wanted to talk through because, when I get in the presence of somebody, sometimes my mind I lose all my thoughts. And so just jotting down a few thoughts of things that I really wanted to talk about and then just seeing how Jim responded to what I brought up was really important because this is what you would, if this person works out, like this is what you're going to be doing for life. If he was just to dismiss my feelings or my concerns, that would have been really hurtful. Even though he may not have understood where I was coming from or, what I was saying, he wasn't dismissive of what I brought up and respected, where I was coming from. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Your relationships and even your friendships are the practice field of what a long-term relationship will look like. The way we interact with each other really sets up a pattern. And whenever you're having a certain kind of a issue or something that comes up in dating, you kind of, there's something that's actually kind of good about it that's you can lighten it a little bit by going, this is actually practice for the long-term thing. And so, yeah, we're getting to practice right now what we want to do and the patterns we want to establish for our long-term relationship. And I think I can lighten it. But also, you need to practice. Because I remember so many different times where something would come up, an issue, and you would be very concerned about it. And my thing was, I'm going to approach this casually and calm and be like, this is probably normal. Like, this is probably something all couples would go through. And so you thought I was just totally calm about it. Like inside, I was like kind of freaking out. But I was like, I want to set a pattern where I don't freak out every time something hard comes up.
Yeah.
Like I want this to be a thing where I can go, yeah, I get that. And this is probably something we can work through. And we can absolutely work through this. Like we can talk about this and we're going to solve it together.
Yeah, and just you're normalizing it and making it seem like, yeah, this is what everybody goes through just really helped me to stay calm he was really good at just de-escalating, the concerns that I would have.
Yeah, and it's so funny because as we've gotten through marriage, like we've actually both stepped into that role a lot.
Yeah.
Like you do that for me all the time. I remember like just recently there was like a complete daughter was melting down trying to get her to school, and I was just like furious. And I just got her to school, and then I just started walking because I was so upset. And I like walked a couple miles, and I get a text from you that completely de-escalated the situation. And I was so amped up internally, and I was so angry that anything that would have like tried to either correct me in that moment or you shouldn't have or anything like that, like I probably would have gotten really defensive. But it was just this very calm and kind thing that I just started crying and being so grateful that like I had a partner that was willing to do that for me. And it basically cracked open the whole situation and helped us move forward. I mean, even a few years ago, I don't know that would have happened. I think maybe we would have ended up angry for 2 days or something, like who knows. But there is this thing about like when you're practicing your relationship, you're setting up these patterns, you can kind of go, what do we need to do to resolve this? And I think early on we got that piece of advice from some people, like when an issue comes up, don't look at this as an issue between you and it's me versus you. It was always us versus this third issue, this external problem. And we've really tried to do that like our whole relationship. Like if there's an issue, it's not me versus you, it's us together versus the issue that's out there.
Yeah. And something that you brought up earlier on was, I don't know if you brought it up, but I remember us like in a disagreement and you took my hand, and just that simple little act really helped me see that you weren't so super and angry at me, that you were upset at the problem and that together we were going to work on this issue. And, you later told me it is a very unnatural feeling. Mm-hmm. It's not something that feels right, but just that act of grabbing, the other person's hand, it really does put this picture in your mind that, we're in this together towards this issue. And, I don't think we necessarily do that a ton now. Maybe we've done it a couple times, but I felt like it really set our relationship on a really good path.
Yeah, I mean that was our policy actually when we got married. That's always anytime some kind of disagreement came up, we would always sit down and do that. We would like, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to be touching, and then we're going to have this discussion. And it was hard for me because I didn't understand. For me, I'm a very quick processor. I think very quickly. I process very quickly. So anytime anything come up, I'm ready to talk about it right now. But you like need more time and you have to like sit with your thoughts. So you would like go to the back room with your journal for like 3 hours sometimes. And you come out and be like, okay, I'm ready to talk. But once we were in that place, we would come together, we would sit down, we would be touching, and then we would have the conversation. We just don't have as many like big things that come up. We still did that last year. We had to like, do we need to sit down and like, do we need to be sitting down, touching, and having this conversation? And I remember we had something happen last year where we did that still. But it's a really good practice, I think, for a lot of people to use that to try and remember that you are connected. I even would say, like, you mean more to me than this disagreement we're having. That seems obvious, but it still needs said. It still needs said that, like, you outrank this thing I'm upset about right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So hopefully you go through this whole relationship. And we were lucky enough that we went through this relationship, we went through this evaluation process, and we felt good about making a commitment to each other. Our community was good about that. But other times you go through this evaluation process. Other times you go through a relationship and you walk down a path with someone for a while, and there's this sense that it's not right. And I don't know, anyone who's ever stayed too long in something or stayed somewhere they shouldn't have been for too long or stayed in something they shouldn't have stayed in for too long will know this feeling of just being like, it's so hard to end something even if you know it needs to end. And sometimes it's easier just to keep the peace and keep going. But I think there's something very brave, and there's something very, it takes a lot of strength, it takes a lot of courage to say that something needs to end. And some relationships, you've walked down a path for quite a while, and it's brought the worst out of you. It's brought the worst out of the other person. You try all of the skills. You try to do whatever you can to form the stable relationship. You try to apply the things you know and your self-awareness. You try. But it's just not going to happen. And it's not going to work. And that's awful and that's hard. But I would just want to encourage you that if you're feeling that, if you sit with yourself for a while and deep down you know, like, this is not producing good things in my life, then you have to consider what it would look like to end it. And that's a really hard thing to say, because I think deep down I kind of cheer for every relationship. I cheer for like things working out and people doing their work. But there's some times when that's just not what's best for people.
Yeah, it is really hard to say goodbye, because you think of all the time you've invested in this relationship, and you can have the mindset that, oh, that was all wasted, and now I have to start all over. My optimistic side would be like, well, just take all that you've learned and, move forward. But there is a cost, and it is sad and painful, and, you can be hurt. But it's worth it in the grand scheme of things. Like, your future self will thank you, and if you aren't able to have the courage to end it, then you're robbing yourself of a better future.
That's powerful. Yeah, I got to sit with that one. That's really, really, really good. It's very well said. But hopefully if you've walked down a road with someone for a while, you do get to come to this place where you decide, like, we're going to make a commitment. Mm-hmm. And I know the evaluation process took a lot longer for you than it did for me. I think 3 months in, I was ready to marry you. I remember, because it was like, we started, our first date was in February, and like end of May, I said, I love you for the first time. And I was like in. And then in November, when my friend Joel got married and I was the best man, and his wife went up to throw the bouquet to the 30 or 40 single women down below, you went all the way off to the side and you did not want to catch it. And she went to the top of this balcony and flung it at just the right trajectory, back angle, directly to you. You looked up, you rolled your eyes, stuck your hand out without looking, and caught the bouquet. And everyone was like, oh my goodness, like, we knew you guys would be next. And all of this different stuff that you were just like smiling through it and gritting through it. And you walked up to me and you're like, I love you, honey. I'm just not ready. Because you hadn't seen everything you wanted to see. But even like that following April, I proposed. I did the proposal that I knew would mean a lot to you, which was that the voice of the community would encourage our relationship. And so I made this video that I proposed of like your parents and my parents and mentors and friends all saying good things about our relationship, that they saw good things in it. Mm-hmm. And even that it would benefit other people in ways that we couldn't have imagined at the time, the things that we're doing now. And on the day I proposed, I wasn't 100% certain you would say yes. But you had reached that point in your own heart. So talk about that.
I mean, I think my dad helped me a little bit. He was like, I think it's getting pretty serious. I think you really need to really settle this in your mind and in your heart, like if this is the guy for you. So I think that was good. I still had no idea when it was coming, but it did give me a little bit of a heads up. But I think that in my heart, I'm a gut person. And so my instincts, it was all there. Like I knew this was the right person. And I think over time, I've had to get better at listening to myself and those gut instincts. Like I think that I could and do know things a lot quicker. And my brain is always catching up. So, if I just go with my gut, I probably could be on board and be a lot quicker in life. But my brain is always looking at a diamond, from all the different facets. Like, well, let me look at this angle and this angle. And I think you all can hear the caution that is.
But you still committed.
But I did. And, I don't really have a problem with commitment. But I don't make a lot of commitments because when I do, it's for life. Or when I do, I stand by my word, which is I don't take commitment lightly. And so maybe that is why I really want to know, And it feels intense. I mean, when you do make commitment, I've never thought of this, but, in a marriage ceremony, you really should have like these fake guns and just like a squirt gun or something, like hand it to your partner symbolically. Like I know you exchange rings, but because that's essentially what you're doing. You're handing your partner a gun because you're utterly and completely vulnerable to this other. And so it is scary, if you don't go through with it, then you just would miss out on so much.
Yeah, because you're putting this powerful, essentially, commitment is putting this powerful weapon in the hands of this other person. So you, like, damn well better be sure that you can trust their character.
Yeah.
You can trust who they are. That was, I think, everything to me, but I sensed that really early on, that I could trust who you were. It was just kind of like, how is it all going to work? Was the scary part. But I think there is a leap. There is a leap of faith. There is no assurance.
Yeah.
Because at one point, no matter how great a relationship is, even if you spend your whole life with someone, like one of them is eventually going to die, or the relationship is going to end, like in some way that's going to break the other person's heart. And like, that you're signing up for something beautiful. You're signing up for something that you think is absolutely worth it and wonderful and brings so much joy. But you're signing up for something that, to a certain extent, like, it's going to break your heart someday.
Yeah.
And there is this aspect where you're going to lose this person that you've invested so much time and energy and love with. And you do have to look at that in a sober way. But at the same time, there's this hope of all of the joy and the beauty and the adventure and the wonder that will exist between those times.
Yeah. Yeah, before Jim, I thought I was a really good person. I was like, I got my shit together. Like, and it really is that other person kind of holds up a mirror and reflects all of you. It was much easier for me to think I was a good person and had it all together and was, but that other person does hold up a mirror and shows you some not pretty stuff. There was, I remember, a tendency to be like, ugh, is this really worth it? Like, I kind of could stay in the illusion of thinking I was a lot better than I am. So there is that illusion part. But at the same time, yes, you reflected some yucky stuff for me to deal with. But then you also draw out and bring out my best self.
Yeah, there's things that we never even knew were there that are good. But it's interesting because I feel like a good relationship, I thought I had my stuff together too. I thought I was perfectly fine. And this mirror gets shown that, like, maybe you're not. But then it was like an opportunity to become the person that I thought I was, that I was maybe not being fully honest about. Like, I want to be this great person. And I don't like that I'm being shown that I'm not this great person that I thought I was. But at the same time, now I have actually an opportunity to really become that instead of just imagining I'm that. And I think that's been a huge benefit over the 15 years we've been together.
Yeah. And don't get us wrong. We have problems.
No, we don't. We have
like
everything perfectly
else.
like that. They're going to listen to us because we know everything about relationships and we get everything right all the time.
Never fight.
We've never had a single
have a
problem.
Disagreement.
No. We do everything right. Everything's perfect all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. That's like we're perfect parents.
Definitely perfect parents. We have no problem in parenting realm.
We never have any of these issues. Like, but the thing is, I think like a good relationship is not one devoid of issues. The only relationship that is devoid of any issues is a relationship that is based on avoidance. Any relationship that actually is good and healthy, like, is one where we are shaped by each other. We help each other wear off edges and not even just that, but build new aspects of ourselves that we didn't know we needed. I'm a much more peaceful person. I'm much more empathetic because of you. I care about people more because of you. That's very true.
And I am definitely more kick-ass and edgy.
I got like emotional and tearful there, and you're like, yes, because if you haven't guessed, like, so I am an 8 and she is a 9. So I have learned to be more peaceful. I have learned to bring things to a more resolved place and to care more about people and to want to see their best and resolve them. Each different kinds of pairing, like sometimes people ask questions about like what Enneagram numbers should be together, and it's not about the type. It's really about the health level. It's really about developing a healthy self. Like people always like, what should I look for in a partner? Well, a much better question is who should you be as a partner? What kind of a person are you, and what is that going to attract? I think that's a much better thing. But different kinds of pairings are going to bring out a different kind of strengths. Like we have couples that like what they do great together is accomplish goals. We kind of go out and do things in the world, but our home is like very kind of chill. It's like where we come to kind of relax and pull back the energy. But some people's homes produce a lot of energy, Mm-hmm. And I think depending on your mix, like you're going to have very different things that you bring to each other. And it's really about the discovery of figuring out what do we bring together and what do we as a team bring to the world, or what do we still as individuals like bring? Because a lot of times people think like, well, we come together and then it's all about like the two of us, but you still are individual people who have very individual things that you have to do and goals you want to reach and things to accomplish, and that's great. That's good.
It's doing stuff together, doing stuff separate, being okay with that. Jim's always encouraging me to go away on my girl trips and remember who I am, and because I need that. Yeah. Him saying, I'm going to take the kid and do what you want with this time is really helpful, because I forget myself a lot. Helps me tap into that.
And some of you are going to go grab what you need yourself. Like, I'm going to do that. I know what I need and I'm going to go get it. Like, I need a bike ride and I need a few hours to kind of like be in beauty and movement, and I'm going to capture it. But as Abby, who's more self-forgetting type, like it's important for me to go, you're going to need time, you're going to need space, and you need to kind of go. And so I'm going to create an environment to where you can like look at yourself again and kind of ask yourself how you're feeling.
Yeah.
One addendum I want to add, because I think it's important, is that we shared this through the lens of our story. We're sharing our story, and we're sharing some processes that we went through and that we think are good to go through. But we know there are many of you out there who went through that process and you evaluated as best you could and you made a commitment. Maybe you even got married to this person, and then it came back to bite you and it didn't work out and something happened. And that thing has caused a lot of pain, maybe a loss of hope. But we hold to this idea that there is beauty and innocence in romance that can be regained and life can be reset. And so my hope for you is as you do your work, and hopefully so much of the Art of Growth and the Enneagram can help you do your work where you're able to go into a relationship with a lot more clarity and a lot more understanding of yourself and a lot more appreciation for the person sitting across from you. So if you're someone who has gone through all of that and it all fell apart, and maybe you're rebuilding your life even now, our heart for you is that you explore and dream so you can love again. And maybe there's more for you than you ever thought was possible. So hopefully you found some of our story helpful, that there's aspects of it that are interesting or encouraging to you. We wanted to sort of address the stages to get into a relationship in this episode, which is that the setting that which you're attracted into, and then to actually look at that, but then actually look through the stages of attraction, infatuation, and sort of that enjoyment and evaluation through the dating, and then deciding to commit or whether something needs to come to an end. A lot of material out there, they talk about the stages of relationship, but I think once you're actually into a committed relationship, there's more like a cycle that happens. And so on the next podcast, we're going to talk about the cycle that happens within the context of the relationship, which is a little bit more to do with our actual coaching work. So next time we'll talk about the cycles that happen within the context of a committed relationship. But for this time, if you would be interested in couples coaching, you can reach out to us on the artofgrowth.org website, and we would love to talk to you.
Thank you all so much for tuning into us, and hopefully some of our story is life-giving to you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.